Hello everybody. In this screencast we're gonna do more JSON parsing. This is a very straightforward application. It's an application which is a weather app, and we're going to use the Open Weather Map API. So basically what you need to do is to go to Open Weather Map and create an account. So basically you click on sign in and then you create an account. Alright, so I already have an account. I'm just gonna submit. And basically I would like you should use the weather API to check the documentation, blah blah blah. Okay, you are provided the list of cities, and each city you also have the longitude and latitude. It's provided in the project, that's provided in the support files, or in the, so let me open the support file. So here it is. Let me open it. It's in the support files. There's that. It's under here. And homework, you should use the starter. I'll just use the solution because I'm going to build the solution now. Right, here it is. Okay, so you see that there is a class that has a list of cities, and for each city it has also the longitude and latitude for each city that I'm interested for you to display on the first screen. Right, so basically this screen is the current weather of that city. And then the next screen is the forecast. So there is an API for the current weather, and then there is an API for the forecast. All right. So let's have a look. So basically, just to show you the code. So this is this data service, and the data service has a list of cities. So basically, you say just there's a city class. You just tell it use the list of cities, and this is each city has a country, has a city, has a latitude and longitude. All right. So we minimize this for the time being and look at the API. So basically there is a current weather API, so we click on that, and this is documentation of the API. So you need something called an API key. So where do I get my API key? I go to here and my API keys. So I'm gonna delete my keys. So I'm gonna delete this one and I'm gonna use this one. It's an active one. I'm copying it, Control C, I copied it, right? Okay, so I have the key, I'm gonna use it, right? So basically I'll use Postman to test it. So here it is, Postman. And all I will do is I'll create a new call. Don't save. And I'll keep the key for the time being here. I'll get back to it, okay? As for the time being, let's see. So the one we're looking at is the current weather. So the current weather needs an API, Open Weather API. That's the copy that. So I'm gonna I don't need to lose the key, so I'm gonna maybe disable it, go here and paste, and maybe I can copy it from here, and that is my key. So the key will go here, right? So that's my key, and it needs a latitude and a longitude, right? So let me pick one of the cities. So let's say Charlotte. I'm gonna copy lat and long. So this is the latitude for Charlotte. Oops. All right, so this is the latitude for Charlotte. Here it is. This is the latitude for Charlotte, and this is the longitude. All right, here it is. And then I click on send, and it gives me the information I need. All right. So the information I need is very straightforward here, you see, and it has the information that I need. Okay, cool. So now we'll come back to parsing the JSON, but I already have the API set up. See here, that's the API for getting the weather. Now let me see if I need to enter any other information to make it return the data in Fahrenheit. When you look here, it says the temperature is 279. That's possibly Kelvin, right? So basically there is also a mode. You see here the response mode, but the default is JSON, so I don't need to do that. The units, there is a units parameter. So here is the units parameter. All right, and then what's the units parameters? I want imperial. Right, so here is imperial, and I click on send, and now you could see that the temperature is showing up in Fahrenheit. You see here, this is the temperature, feels like the minimum temperature, the maximum temperature, and so on. You can change it to metric. Now it's going to be in Celsius. Here's metric. All right, and now it's showing you the temperature in Celsius. All right, but the app seems to use imperial, so I'm going to use imperial here. Here it is, and send. Okay, good. So now I have the data for this scenario. Right now for the forecast, I click on forecast. Here's the API. I'll copy this. I'll create another tab, and these are all get methods, right? Here's the other tab. I'll copy my API key. You will have your own API key. I'll deactivate this key after the video, but the API key, and here is the latitude, and here is the longitude. Here is that also, and that's the forecast. And we'll look at the forecast in a little bit. Send, and that's what the forecast looks like. We'll look at what it makes sense and so on. It has also units. Okay, here is units, and it is also in imperial. All right, click on send, and it shows you how to do it in imperial. Anything else we need to do? Language, you can change the language and so on. So basically here it is. Here's the API calls, the 2 API calls that we need for this assignment. And so basically it's 3 screens. First screen, you have a list of cities. You pick out the city you want. It goes to the next screen, sends it the city, calls the first API, which is the current weather API, gets you the current weather, parses it, displays it. And then when you click on check forecast, it goes to the next screen, sends it the city, and then it displays it calls the API for forecast, and then displays it. All right. So basically, it's very straightforward of how we could do this, right? So now, the other thing also is this image. We'll look at the image in a little bit, but the API call is very straightforward to make, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this using the HTTP. So basically, if I need to set up the project, I go here, add uses the internet, and uses permission, and it's the internet permission, and here we go. So I have added the internet permission. That's good. Go to the Gradle and add to it build features. View binding is true. Good. And then I need to go to the HTTP screen and get the implementation, the library name, sync now. And that should take care of adding the library. Now I need to create a new Java class. I'll call it the current weather. Okay, I'll call it weather. Oops. Weather. All right, and don't ask me again, and add it. Okay, good. So here is the weather, right? And we'll see what we need from the weather. We need this information, so I'll figure out where is it in the app itself. And we go back to the API. When you call the API, I'll copy the whole thing because I will need it to parse. Right, here it is. Here it is. Okay, good. So that's it. We'll come back to it. No. So basically, what we need is to parse some information here. Like for example, I need the description, which is what's being shown here, which is the cloudiness. I don't need the description. Oh yeah, description. It says clear sky. So this I need the description saying clear sky. I need the temperature and the temperature maximum, temperature minimum. So I need these 1, 2, and 3, right? I need also the humidity, the wind speed, the wind degree, then the cloudiness, which is the percentage cloudiness here, right? So that's basically all what I need. Okay. I don't need the date and time. I don't need the sunrise. We look at what other things are. Now, how do I display the image? So basically the image is the icon. I need the icon also. So basically what I will need is, I don't need these. So I'm going to delete them. The ones that I don't need. I don't need the coordinate. Right? I don't need this. Right? I don't need this space station stuff. Here we are. The main, I need the temperature. Do I need the pressure and humidity? Yes. I don't need the visibility. I need the wind degree, blah, blah, blah. Here it is. And then clouds, I don't need that. Here. And DT, I don't know if I need it for the time being. I don't need all of that stuff. All of this, I do not need. All right, so here it is. I just removed the stuff that I don't need, right? Okay, good. So all of the stuff that I don't need, I removed it. But I just try to maintain the JSON object so that I could see what I need here, right? Okay, cool. So now I know that I will have a string for the description, the string for the icon, for the temperature. So that's for the icon. Good. String for the temperature, string for the temperature minimum, maximum, the pressure. I can have them as doubles if I need to. So basically I can have all of these as doubles. This is the double. There it is. The temperature, temperature max, the pressure, and the humidity, right? There it is also here. And the wind speed and the wind degree also I can add them as wind. I call it speed and degree. All right, so that's for the wind. Here they are. Now let's assume that I'm going to receive a JSON object that represents this, right? So now what I could do is I could do this. I create a constructor, public weather constructor that is going to receive a JSON object. Okay, a JSON object, right? And then it from that JSON object that represents this, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to retrieve, let's say, main. Main is also another JSON object, so I could go here and say JSON object, which is the main JSON object equals JSON dot get object at, it's called main, right? And it will throw an exception, right? So here we are. So I have this, right? I have this main. Now I could go and get the temperature. So I could say this dot temperature equals the main JSON object dot get double, and it's called temp. All right, so that's one. I have the temperature. I can do the other ones. There are 5 of them. Then I have the temperature minimum. I have the temperature maximum. I have the pressure. And I have the humidity. Okay, so I took care of the main. Okay. Basically, all what I do is I get the root object, go in and get the main object, which is this one. And I'm done with this. The wind, I can do the same thing. Copy this from here to here, and instead of it being called main, this is the wind, and this is wind. It's the JSON object, the root object, and then under it there is wind. And I'm going to do the exact same thing here. So I'm going to copy this from here, paste it here, and instead of using the main object, I'm going to use the wind object, and the first one is called speed, second one is called degree. Okay, so basically I get the wind object, and then under it I can get the speed and get the degree. Good, we're good with this. Now the weather is a little bit different. The weather is an array. You see that? The weather is an array, and because it's an array, I need to get the weather array first. So okay, so it's a JSON array. Get JSON array, and the name is weather. All right, so now we can do some sanitization checks here. This is the weather, so here is weather, and this is, we're gonna call it weather. All right, so we could check to see if JSON array weather JSON array dot length is greater than 0. We'll do something here. So basically here we can go ahead and get the first object, right, which is I'm going to get a JSON object. You see here it has a JSON object inside it, right, and I'll call it a JSON object, and this is the first, okay, JSON object equals weather array dot get JSON object at 0, the first one, right? And now basically I can safely get the description. So I could do the description, this dot description equal first JSON object dot get string of description. Okay, and then similarly I get the icon, and this is the icon. Control C, the icon. All right, so the weather is a little bit different because it's an array. I just got the first item of the array and we're good to go. So I did provide the required parsing for the weather. Okay, so now let's have a look at how to retrieve it. So basically let's go to the weather fragment. So in the main activity, when it first loads, I need to go to the weather fragment. So we'll get support fragment manager, dot begin transaction dot commit, and basically here add dot add r dot id dot root view new weather fragment, and we're good to go. All right, let's go to the weather fragment. It doesn't receive any data. It's going to call the API. So no, we don't go to the weather fragment to start with. We need the cities fragment. Yes, this is the cities fragment, right? So when we run this, we first go to the cities fragment. We can run it just for the time being, just to see here. So basically we have built already the API call to do this stuff here. And the cities fragment, we go to the cities fragment, display stuff like this, very straightforward, but I already did the parsing, right? So, okay, here is the cities fragment. So if we go to the cities fragment, it does not receive any data. So all of that stuff goes away, and all of this stuff goes away. All of this goes away, and we can do the binding fragment cities binding, right? So for this code, I'm going to turn on a GitHub Copilot. So I think it's going to help me a little bit here to get this done a little bit quicker. All right, so this is binding here, return binding here. So we're done with this, and then on create view created, and then this is going to be get activity dot set title to cities. Okay, and then I need an adapter, right? So I need an adapter for the okay, cool. So I need an array adapter of type city, and this is my adapter, and the city is the class that I have created in the data service, right? All right, so basically now we just need cities. Basically we'll do this, we'll create adapter equal new array adapter, simplest item, and data service dot just get cities. Is there get cities, or it's a static called cities? Here's cities. So basically I'm just using the default one, get context, or you can do get activity here. Here's get activity, you pass it the simple row item 1 and get the list of cities. Good. And then binding dot list view dot set adapter to adapter, and then binding dot list view dot set on item click listener new on item click listener. Cool. So this is the position. This is the position, right? Cool. So now if we run it, it will show what? Basically, I don't want it to show the, basically I want it to show the city, the country. Good. So basically what I would like to do is just I'll edit the data services class such that the toString of the city returns, here it already returns the city, the country. So we're good. So when you run it, you'll see that it's going to display the city, country because of the toString, right? All right, here we are. The cities are displayed. Now when you click on one of these cities, we want to go to the next screen. So now we need the listener. The interface, cities, fragment listener. I call it, let's say, cities listener. On city selected, you pass it the city. That's good. And then we'll do the M listener code. M listener on attach, and here we are, the M listener with all of that interesting stuff and so on. This is all GitHub Copilot, but this is the most important line here, right? And then basically here we're going to do M listener dot on city selected, and then I need the city. So basically, how do I get the city? And basically data services dot city dot get position, or I could use the adapter. I could say adapter get item and give it the position, right? And that will return back the city. Cool. So now I have the city stuff here set up. It will all go to the activity, right? So this city is going to go to the activity. We need to implement the interface. So basically in the activity, we need to say implements, give it the interface, and we go here and we implement the method, and here we are. Now what this does is this, basically it's going to get support fragment manager, and then we need to implement the new instance. Okay, so basically let's go to, it's not the city fragment, basically we need to go to the weather fragment, and we need to pass it a city. All right, so basically we'll delete all these comments, and the first parameter is going to be a city. It's the only parameter we're going to send. Here is a city. Remove this. I'm going to receive a city. Okay, no more to do. We're done here. All these comments are bye-bye. And we're going to receive a city. And basically this is arg city, and all of this is here, and this is put serializable. Okay, we passed the city. Similarly here, mcity get serializable, arg city needs to be casted. Here we are, casted and done. We can do the binding here, fragment cities, not cities, this is fragment weather, binding, and then similarly we're going to do the same thing here, binding equals, here it is, return binding. Good, so that's this, and then we are here on view created, then we add our code. All right, cool. So we are here, we came here, we just need to show that this is current weather, so we get activity dot set title current weather. All right, good. And then binding text view dot city name dot set text to mcity dot get the city. Basically they want to show the city, or I could do toString. I think the toString does it for me. Right, the toString returns the city comma country. All right, and then I have the other stuff here, the temperature and all of that stuff. So there's binding temperature, the text view temperature. There it is. Get temp. Oh, we can't get the temperature because all that stuff we can get it only when we call the API, right? We need to call the API. So let me disable this guy here because it's just confusing me a little bit here. So I'll disable completions. Right. Now let's run the app just to see where we're at. So run the app. Oh yeah. So now here we just need the weather fragment.new instance with the city. Right. We run this. It's going to go to that screen and send it the city. All right. Good. So we pick Chicago and it's showing Chicago. Right. Go back, Baltimore, and showing Baltimore. Good. So that's very straightforward. Now, when we receive the city, we just need to make an API call. Okay. And the API call is, we want to create an API call, and that API call needs to go and make an HTTP connection or a post request. A GET request, but it has parameters, right? So there is a video that we posted, and I'm going to post a link to it in the description of the video here. The video shows you how to add parameters to a GET request. So to add parameters to the GET request, it's added in the URL. And to guarantee that the encoding is done correctly, then as indicated in the video that I'm going to post in the description, we'll use the HTTP URL builder, right? and we'll see how to do that and so on. So now basically what I'm going to do is here I'm going to create a method get weather, right? And basically this get weather, we need to create a request that looks like this, right? Something like this, right? So I copy this from here, I'll copy this here, and here's the URL that I need, right? Now if you look at the URL, you have to split it into pieces. So HTTP URL, okay, that's what we do, and this is going to be equal to HTTP dot parse, HTTP URL dot parse, right? Then you put the URL, the base URL, which is the one before the question mark, this one, okay, all of this, that's the base URL. Okay, here it is, and we create a new builder, and then basically we go in and add a query parameter. So basically this is the key, and then this is the value, right? And then basically you do build. So that gets you HTTP URL, that's your URL. And how many parameters do we have? We have 1, then we have 2, they are separated by the ampersand. 3, 4, and 5. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Good. So basically, this is the app ID. The first one is going to be the app ID, which is my key. Okay, so I added that. The other ones are, so I already done with the app ID. The units. Okay. Now I have the longitude, there's the longitude and the latitude. And these I'm gonna get from the city. So I have I have a city here somewhere that I received. Why am I writing the code in the main activity? This code doesn't go here. This code goes in the weather fragment here. That's what the code that we're going to call get weather, right? So it's here, right? So basically here, the longitude is going to be mcity.get longitude, and then similarly this one is going to be mcity.get latitude, and it's not happy because it's expecting it's returning doubles, and it's expecting it to return to be strings. So basically I'm going to do string.value of string.value of, and I'm going to ask it to go do it like this. Alright, so string.value of, and similarly also string.value of. Okay, and okay. Alright, so we're good here, and we need the bracket here also. We're good. So basically I just changed it to a string. This is the longitude, latitude's coming in from the city. I built my URL like this. Okay, so as a reminder, let's go back again to Postman. This is what the URL looks like. It's a get request. The parameters are all in the URL. So here we are. This is what the URL looks like. So now what I did is, this is what the URL looks like. I took everything before the question mark. This is the base URL. Okay, that's what I put here. And then everything after the question mark are all parameters, and they are separated by this ampersand. So basically this is the first parameter, key, value, key, value, key, value, key, and then value. So I did that. I split them down here like this, and we're good, right? So I recommend using this approach because it takes care of the encoding. Okay, now if you have these strings that have spaces, it causes problems, need to be encoded in the correct way. So I have this. Now everything else is exactly the same as we would do as we will create a request. Here is the request. We need first to create a client. Okay, HTTP client. Here it is. The okay, HTTP client. Options, enter. We imported things. Now we need to build the request. Okay, I'm just going to copy the code. This is how you build the request with the URL, and you already have the URL, so that's going to be URL here, and options imported. All right. So here we are. We're good to go. We have the request. Then we do the client dot new call. We pass it the request dot enqueue new callback. All right. So we're good here. If the response is successful, else we're going to do something else. So basically, if it's successful, Now what we need to do is we need to display the information here, right? We need to first parse, right? We need a weather object, right? So remember, when we already parsed the weather, right? So basically it is expecting to receive this whole object, the object that comes back, right? The whole object, yes? And it's using the whole object to parse. So basically what we're going to receive is a string body equal response, then body dot string, right? And then we have a JSON object, and that becomes the JSON object equals new JSON object with the body. Okay, and there's a try catch that we need to handle here. Here we are. So now how do I get the weather? Here is the weather equals JSON objects dot equals new weather. We'll use the constructor that receives a JSON object, and we have the weather. Now this parses everything, right? So if you go back here, it receives it and it parses everything here. All right, so we have the weather object, and now all we have to do is maybe we can store it globally. You know, I can do that here by having a weather, maybe call it m weather. All right, so now we could just make m weather equal to this. M weather equal this, and then I could go here and get activity dot run on UI thread new runnable. So now why I need to do that? Because I'm going to change the layout, and this is a UI operation. It has to be done on the UI thread, right? And this is all done in the background thread, by the way. You know, this block is executing in the background. But anyway, so we're here. Now we go do binding dot text view city name. We already have the city name dot text view cloudiness, or let's bring in this a little bit to the side here so you can see what we are doing here. So now we need the temperature. So text view temperature set text weather dot get dot we didn't create a getter and setter. Let's create some getters and setters for the weather. Some getters and setters for some getters and setters for all of them. Also like to create an empty constructor. Let's do an empty constructor. Done. Okay, good. So I have the weather getter and setter, and then here we'll do get temperature plus, and then we'll do Fahrenheit. So that's the temperature. Here we are. We have the other temperatures, which is the maximum. So text view temp max, text view temp minimum, get temp max, get temp minimum. So we're good with the temperature. Now similarly we want the description. So basically I'll copy that from binding the text view description dot set text m weather dot get description. So I have the description, and then binding dot text view wind speed dot set text to m weather dot get speed, added to that miles per hour. Binding dot text view wind degree dot set text m weather dot get degree plus, and we'll say degrees. All right, and then cloudiness. So binding dot text view cloudiness dot set text m weather dot get we don't have cloudiness parsed. All right, so we don't have cloudiness, we have humidity. We have humidity, we didn't enter humidity. Let's do humidity then. So here is humidity, and that's a percentage. All right, so we'll do that. This is percentage, and this is text view humidity. All right, good. So now let's see, where is this when we run this? Where is cloudiness? Where is cloudiness? In here. I don't see cloudiness here or here. clouds, and it says 8. I don't know what this 8 is, so let's see. It's a percentage, so the cloudiness is under clouds. Okay, good, so we can get cloudiness. Let's do this. So let's go back again to the weather, and cloudiness is not under anything, it's other clouds, so basically we have to go in and get clouds. Okay, and it's a double, right? We can make it a cloudiness. I'll call it cloudiness. All right, so now here we need to get a JSON object. I'll copy these two because it's very similar to this. So here's a JSON object, and I'm going to call it clouds, right? So basically it's going to be the clouds object. The name of it is clouds. We go to the root. You see it's in the root. Under the root there is something called clouds, and then there is all, right? So we do that. Here is all, and from the clouds object, and that's the cloudiness. All right, so basically we go to the root, you get an object called clouds. Here is an object called clouds, and then under that object there is a double that's called all, right? So under it there's double, it's called all, and I put it in cloudiness. I can add I can add a getter for cloudiness. There it is. Okay, we close this now, and we do this here now. Binding dot text view cloudiness dot set text mweather dot get cloudiness, and then add to it something. So now what we're going to add to it? Cloudiness is a percentage. Okay, good. So now we'll put a percentage. All right, so we are done with setting up the system here, and I'll run it, and let's see. Here we are. There it is, and we never called the method. So let's go back and see, did we ever call get weather? We never called it. So where do we call it? We'll call it after we set up here. We'll just call it here, get weather, and run it. Let's see. Okay, Charlotte, and here are the values. Go back, Chicago, here are the values. Miami, here are the values. Houston, here are the values, and so on. So let's say Abu Dhabi, for example, and here are the values. All right, so you could see that we are able to get the data. Now what about this icon, right? So the icon, we already retrieved the icon, but if you look at this link, it shows you the weather conditions. Basically we retrieved an icon, right? And this icon, right? Now this icon, how do you see here, it shows you the URL. So there is a URL that you can call, copy that from here. And this URL, all you have to do is that the icon, you see this 10D, right? This 10D represents, see here, 10D is the icon value that we retrieve. Like for example, if the icon is 10D, we just need to concatenate it to all of this, and that becomes the URL for the icon, right? Okay, so that's the URL for the icon. So what I'm going to do is, when you say get icon, I'm going to create a method, public, and it returns a string, public string get icon URL, right? And it's gonna basically return the string. This is what the string looks like, and then instead of this, I'm gonna put the icon. Right, or it's gonna return the string icon. Okay, so basically I just did exactly what they recommended. I have the string icon. Notice that it's HTTP. I'll make it HTTPS. Okay, I can test. Like for example, when we click here, see it's showing this. What if I do HTTPS? Does it work? Yes, it works. So HTTPS also works. All right, so perfect. So I need why it's HTTPS, because in the manifest I did not allow clear text. So here, allow clear user data, or clear or traffic, right? Clear text traffic. I didn't allow clear text traffic, right? Or uses clear text traffic. So that's why I just need to make sure that I'm using HTTPS. Now, how do I display the image? I'm going to use the Picasso library. So there is a Picasso Android library, with one line, you give it the image view and it will display it. Right, so I'll copy the line, but before I do that, I want to know how to install it. So if you scroll down a little bit, latest library, Picasso. So let me copy Picasso from here, right? And I'm gonna add it to my project in a little bit different way. So I go here, right click, open module settings, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to dependencies plus add a library, twist the Picasso library here, press enter, gives me this is the Picasso library. I click OK and then OK. Now what happens is it adds it automatically for me in the build grader. You see here it added it for me in the build grader. Okay, cool. So I have the Picasso library now, right? Now in order to display an image, all you need to do is this. I'm going to copy this from here, and where I'm going to display it, I'm going to display it when I have the data. So basically when you say get, this is the weather fragment, right? When you say get weather inside here, right? I'll do Picasso import the URL. Where do I get the URL from? I'll do m weather.get URL, the icon URL, right? And then the image view is binding.image view the weather icon. So basically you just give it the image, the image view you want to load the image in, and it's going to work. Okay, perfect. So now let's run it. Here we are, and we pick Charlotte, and it's showing cloudy. Go back, pick Chicago, pick Chicago, and it's cloudy also. Let's pick Houston, cloudy. UK, a little bit cloudy with a little bit of sun. Abu Dhabi, and it's sunny, and so on. So you can also pick, let's say this one, Sharjah, Dubai, and so on. So you can pick whatever cities you want to pick, and it's going to show you the icon. All right, so we are good with this current weather. Now the forecast is a different story. So the forecast is a little bit different, but let's have a look at what the forecast is going to do and what data we would like to pass from the forecast. Okay, so now the forecast, let's have a look at the API first, and we'll go from there. So we are here, we did look at the API, right? We click on send, we need to pass it this information, and it gets you a list of weather forecast, right? This is 1 and 2, so there is a list, right? So basically, let me copy all of this, Control A, Control C, or I can make it a little bit bigger, you could see it. Okay, it's too big here, but let's see. So basically you could see that it starts off as a JSON object, and then in there is a list of weather forecasts, right? So basically it gives you the weather forecast, and this is one forecast item. You know, this is where it starts, this is where it ends, right? This is where it starts, line 6, and it ends on line 41. It has the date and time. I already have the text for the date and time, which I'm going to display here, right? And it has other information, right? So let's see. So basically I'll copy this and do exactly the same thing for the forecast. So copy this from here to here, go here, here, right click new, Java class, I'll call it forecast, and basically I'm going to do this. Here we are, and this, and we're good. So now let's have a look at what is needed. I need the date and time. Okay, so I need the date and time, and I already figured it out that it's here, right? So basically I'm going to copy it like this. It's a string DTX, so I have the date and time. So this is the temperature, the maximum and the minimum. So basically I have the temperature, maximum and minimum, so I'll have doubles here like I did here. You see I have these doubles here, right? Temperature minimum, temperature maximum, and I have temperature also. Where is that? Cool. So I don't need feels like, I don't need DT, I don't need, do I need the pressure? No, they're not showing the pressure or the sea level or the ground level. They're showing the humidity and the humidity, and they also are showing the description. So basically this is the description, and they are also showing the icon. All of that stuff I don't need, right? Don't need all of this. See, I'm removing just objects. You see, I'm removing the clouds object. I don't need it. I'm removing the winds object. I don't need it. And then I'm removing the visibility and all that stuff here. But I still have this one, the weather, just because I just need it as a guidance when I'm writing the code, right? So here it is. So I have that, and then also I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So humidity is also part of the story. Yes, humidity is part of the story. Humidity. All right, so I have that. I have these 4. The description. So this is a string. Here's that description, and then we have the icon, and we're good to go. All right, cool. So now we create a public forecast, an empty constructor, also public forecast. Gonna receive a JSON object, and we're good here. So basically here we need to get the main, which is a JSON object. So basically I'm going to do JSON object main equals JSON object dot get JSON object that's called main. All right, this needs to add the exception. So I have the JSON object here. I could say this dot temp equals main dot get double, and the name is temp. I'll copy that from here to here, paste it 4 of them. First one is called temp, second one is called temp min, temp max, and humidity. Okay, so I'm done with the main. I'll do the same exact thing for the weather. Here we are. It's called weather. All right, and then this dot description equals weather dot get string, and it's called description. So I have the description, and then I have the icon here. So here's the icon. All right, now this one is just directly under the root. So basically I'll do this, dtx equals the root, which is the JSON object, the one that's coming in right here, and then I'll say get string with dtx. All right, I can give it a little bit better name if I want, but I already have dtx, works. Okay, I could say date, time, text, something like that, just to make it look a little better if I want to, but I prefer to keep it the same name as the JSON. All right, so here we are. So we are done with this. We parsed the forecast object, right? So now this is the forecast object. We parsed it already. Let's create a getter and setter for everything, and we're good for the forecast. So now if we go to the forecast fragment, the forecast fragment is supposed to receive a city, right? So basically it's going to receive a city. So I can copy some of the code that I have for the weather fragment, because I already, this one also receives a city. So I'm going to copy all of that stuff from here to here. Yeah, we have to be a little bit careful when we do this, but let's see what happens when we do this. It's going to be complaining because I copied the wrong constructor and all that stuff. So basically I'm going to copy this from here. Yeah, I'm not going to repeat the whole code, but here you are. Now it's not complaining. Basically, I just wrote exactly the same code. Just it's going to receive a city, right? And on create, receiving the city, parameters, and so on. It's returning a forecast, new instance, and so on. All right, so let's go back to the here, and we can write let's write the code to display all of this. We'll do that. But let's get to this screen. So to get to this screen, when we are in the forecast in the weather fragment, when the user picks, when you have the when the user clicks the button, right? So basically, when you are here, binding dot button. Oh, so that button doesn't have an ID. That's pretty interesting. So let's go back here, layout the weather fragment, And in the weather fragment, there is no button. We need a button, check forecast. So let's add the button. Here it is. And we just give it a little bit of here it is. Check forecast. Okay, good. So we go here. Here's the button. Add a text. Okay, the resource name is already there. Good. So let's add it. Check forecast. Good. So I forgot to create the button in the layout, but anyway, so here it is. We go back to the binding dot check forecast dot set on click listener new on click listener. So here is the binding for that, and we need to go to the next screen. So we'll create the interface listener. So basically we maybe we can turn on the completions. Maybe it's gonna help me write this a little bit faster. An interface, and here we go. And let's remove weather listener. Go to forecast fragment, and we're gonna pass it the city. That's perfect, right? And we have, this is the interface. Now we need the listener, right? Here we are. So we're good here. I just used the GitHub Copilot to do this for me. So here it is. And basically I'm going to do this. I'm going to do go to forecast and then send it mcity. All right, we're good. Now we need to implement this interface in the main activity. Here's the interface, and implement the method. Go here, and here's the code. Basically get fragment manager, the forecast, we send it to the city, add to backstack and commit. Good. So we're good here. This takes us to the forecast. So now when we run it, I think it's going to work, but we are not doing any parsing yet, right? Here it is. You click Charlotte, takes you here. Check forecast, goes here. Cool. So we're good. Now let's write the code to do the forecast, which is straightforward now, but all right. So now let's do some binding. So fragment forecast binding, and we're gonna use GitHub Copilot to speed up the process. Here it is, and return. Good. On binding return. It is a return binding don't get root on view created. Here we are, and then basically we're going to do get activity dot set title to weather forecast. All right, good. So we have that binding dot get dot city name text view binding dot text view city name. We don't have that here. That's pretty interesting. So let me have a look at the layout for the forecast. Yeah, it doesn't have the city name at the top. It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna worry about that now. But let's build the adapter here. This is, I'll use an array adapter, right? And that array adapter should display this stuff. Let's do that. So let's build the array adapter. All right, and I'm going to disable GitHub Copilot. All right, here we are. Okay, so now class, and I'm going to call it, for example, forecast adapter extends array adapter of type forecast. All right, here we are, and let me disable this. Okay, and now it's gonna ask me what constructor you want, and I'm gonna pick the constructor that's gonna receive a list of items, this one. Okay, perfect, that's this one. And then the method that I'm going to use is get view. All right, and then I'm going to use binding for this. I have a whole video about that, so I'll check to see if the so the binding is based on the forecast list item. So I already have a forecast list item. It looks like this. So forecast list item binding and binding. All right, so do this, and then if the convert view is equal to null, then inflate the binding, and binding dot inflate dot binding dot mbinding equals forecast item dot inflate get layout inflator dot convert view, sorry, not the convert view, parent dot false. That becomes the binding, and then we tell the convert view dot set tag to mbinding. Okay, else mbinding equals convert view dot get tag, and we cast it. All right, so that's just using binding, boilerplate code. What we return here is going to be the convert view, right? And then basically here what we're going to do is the convert view dot, or the binding, we'll use the binding dot text view date and time dot set text to we need the forecast item, forecast equals get item at position, and the position is what we have here. All right, here it is, and that's going to be forecast dot get date and time. Here is that. Okay, mbinding dot text view temp dot set text forecast dot get temp and plus Fahrenheit, and basically the temperature is going to be just plus Fahrenheit. Mbinding dot text view temp max dot set text forecast dot get temp max plus Fahrenheit, and before it we just put max colon. All right, max. All right, so that's the max. We'll do the same thing to the minimum, min, and this is min, get minimum, and we're good here. So we have the temperatures already set up, this row, humidity, and now the final thing is the description. Mbinding dot text view humidity dot set text, and we indicate it's humidity, and basically we go in and say forecast dot get humidity plus percentage. Okay, we are good here. Mbinding dot text view clouds, so we text view description forecast dot get description. All right, so we have that. Now the to display the URL is also the same story. I'll use Picasso, so I'll go to the weather fragment and I'll copy this line from here to here and I'll paste it. But then for the weather fragment, I already have how to create the string. I'm going to copy that from here, from the weather object, and I'll put it in the forecast object also, because we already have the icon in both. We already have this icon here, right? And it's the same idea. So basically this is going to be that forecast.get icon URL, and then binding dot mbinding. This is mbinding dot image view weather icon. Right, so basically I have the weather icon for each row, and for each row I'm displaying the information. Now this is the forecast adapter. So basically I'll copy this from here, maybe add it here and call it adapter. Right, and now here let's create the adapter equals new forecast adapter, and it needs some information. It needs the context, get activity. It needs the resource r.id, r.layout dot forecast list item, and then it needs an array list that has the data. So basically this is an array list of forecasts equal new array list, just an empty array list that I'm going to have here, and that's going to be here. All right, good, we're good here. Binding dot list view dot set adapter to adapter. All right, good, so we're good. And then we need to create a method to get you the forecast. Get forecast. All right, so it's exactly the same way and this is public or private void. All right, so that's how we get the forecast. The same exact way we get the weather, right? So when we're getting the weather, I'm just gonna copy the exact same code from here, let's say to here. I'm gonna copy that forecast and the forecast fragment, and here it is. I need also the client. Here's the client, Control C, forecast fragment. Here's my client. Oops. Paste the client here. Okay, I'm gonna call this method here, get forecast, right? The URL is different, so I'll copy the URL from here. Here is copy, and I am going to paste it here. The URL is this. Here is API. There's that forecast. Okay, so I'm gonna do that, and then it needs the let, the long, the API key, and the units. Exactly the same parameters. Right, so I have exactly the same parameters here. So that's the forecast done. All right. So I'm done with that. Do the request. Client dot new call request dot new dot enqueue new callback. All right. So we're here. Check to see if response is successful. We're gonna do something else. We're going to do something else. Now we are here, right? So what we get is the is this JSON object. So basically, let's get the body, right? So it's a string body equals response dot body dot string. Notice that it's dot string. It's not toString. Okay. And now JSON object, and this is the root. This is the JSON. Let's call it the JSON object equals new JSON object body. It's not going to be happy. It needs try catch block. Here it is. Okay, we're good here. So now we have the whole JSON object. Now what we're interested in is this list, and the list is a JSON array, right? Okay, so JSON array, JSON list equal new equal JSON object dot get JSON array, and its name is list. All right, so we're good here for I. Here it is. While the JSON list also is a JSON list length, and then basically we have a JSON object, and we call it, for example, the JSON for forecast get JSON object at I. And then we have a forecast. We'll use the constructor we created, forecast equal new forecast, and we pass it the forecast JSON object here. Okay, and then we do forecasts dot add the forecast that got parsed. All right, so then when we are done, I would go here and clear the forecast first. So forecast, this is something that I clear. Just clear it, and then we go in. We are not going to reuse it, but recall the method again in the same screen. But just for the sake of consistency, I'll do that. And then here we need to notify that the data has changed, notify the adapter. So we get activity dot run on UI thread, new runnable, right? And then here we put whatever we want to run on the UI thread, and that is going to be adapter dot notify data has changed, data set changed. And we're good. So basically that should refresh the whole table and takes care of the whole process. So now when we are calling the method, when we come in, see here, we're calling get forecast here. And make sure that, see, I'm calling it after I set up my adapter, right? And here is Charlotte, takes you here, check the forecast, and it crashes. Okay, that's good. So basically let's go in and click here and see where does it crash. It can't find something called weather as JSON array. Okay, so the forecast, let's have a look. Okay, let's see. So we are here, we get the list. It's crashing here somewhere. So let's go back again to the look at fatal exception. At weather. So basically if we go to forecast 921, it's not happy with this. So let's have a look and the object and see what did we do wrong. All right, so we're able to get the main, right? The weather is an array. See here, the weather is an array, it's not an object, and we are telling it to get an object. So the same problem. So basically, let me paste the code here so that you could see what I'm trying to do here. Here's this, right? So basically what we could do, it's an array, right? And it has the description and the icon, okay? So for the weather, we'll do the same thing. So basically we'll get a JSON array, and this is get JSON array, and it's called weather, right? Here it is, which is weather, here it is. And then we check to see if weather.length is greater than 0, right? Just to make sure it's not empty, right? Now we get a JSON object, which is just the first, right? The first weather item equals the weather.get JSON object at index 0, the first one, right? And then the code that we wrote here, we're going to use it here. So basically we're going to use this code here, the weather, and here we go. All right, so basically we are able to do this. We did this before in the weather stuff, you know, when we did the weather parsing. This is an array, right? So basically we go in, we get the array, we just check to see if the array is greater than 0, the size of it is greater than 0. This means it has some other objects here. We pick the first object, and that's what we do to parse. We get to parse just the first object. All right, so we don't need this anymore. Let's run this again. Okay, now we pick Charlotte. Here it is. Check the forecast, and it crashed again. All right, good. So let's see where does it crash again. Let's click here again, and it has a null pointer. Okay, let's see what happened here. All right. So let's see. There's a null pointer on a reference object. So yeah, if it's equal to null. Oh man, okay, I did a mistake here. So basically this is boilerplate code again. So when you come in, the convert view is null, we do inflate, then we have to tell the convert view is equal to mbinding.getRoot, right? And then we add the binding as part of the tag, right? So we run it now, it's gonna work, right? Here we are, click on Charlotte, here's the weather for Charlotte, click on the forecast, and this is the weather forecast for Charlotte. You could see the clouds, scroll down a little bit, and here's the clouds, and here's the weather forecast for Charlotte. Go back, let's pick London. Okay, click here, and this is London. All right, perfect. So you can see that we are able to build this app. It takes a little bit of work, but it's doable. You know, the whole process is similar to what we did before. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.